Once again, I'm Albert Wuthridge.
I'm Wesley Robinson.
And welcome to You're the Boss. And here we go on another edition of what we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen this morning, but we know it's going to be big. We're going to learn something from it. Last week, Wesley, we had set the ideas of what this series was going to be about. And it's going to be about lots of different things. It's going to be about your family. It's going to be about your private relationships. It's going to be about your business relationships and your businesses and your leadership. So it'll work in a lot of different places, yet to be developed exactly, but it defines itself as we go along. So we're trying to set parameters, also trying to set helps for people as we develop this series of You're the Boss. Today, as we get started, once again, it's an ad-lib series, so we're gonna let a spiritual element come in here that is much bigger and much brighter than you or I.
Yeah.
And so today, as we start thinking about this, we start thinking about, first of all, that we need to define spirit, soul, and body. That we have a spirit, we have a soul, and we have a body. That soul is huge because it is our mind, our will, and emotions.
Right.
And we're going to talk about within that soul today that there are choices and decisions, and as leadership there are also parameters.
Right.
That must be set. Otherwise that spiritual prompting will never get to that material world.
Right.
Because within a person's soul, their mind, will, and emotions, we make choices.
Right.
And those choices determine what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And so, you've had a lot of experience dealing with settings like that. And can you kind of explain what about parameters and things? What have you experienced both on the positive side of that and on the negative side of it?
Sure. I think whenever I started out my career from a professional standpoint, my agendas defined by boundaries. And so whenever I went into meetings, I had my personal agendas and which set my boundaries. Just like my boss's agendas set their boundaries. And not every time were those the same. And the best meetings that I went to, the best relationships that I had from a boss was that whenever those boundaries were taken down and we came to a common ground. Mm-hmm. And we defined what our group boundary was, or the team boundary was.
And just curious, how did that happen? Because that took some work, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it took the willingness to let go, the willingness to listen to someone else's opinion and value it, to really knowing that I wasn't always right, and that there is always a middle of the ground with every aspect of that.
Boy, you're really convicting me right now because those are difficult things in relationships.
Right.
Because you don't get to prepare for that. It just happens.
Right.
So tell me, how'd you do? And how are you doing? And then how do you, when I said that happens just immediately because you don't get the choice when somebody's going to challenge those parameters.
I think over the course of time, what's actually been my setting is before I'm going into a big meeting with big decisions, with things on my heart, I pray about it before I go into it. And I ask for the ability to listen, the ability to speak the truth and speak what's on my heart.
Wes, that's, and we'll tell the audience that's huge. Without, and we talked about spirit, soul, and body at the start of this taping. That's huge. Without that spiritual direction, there's no way you can get to that next spot.
Right.
And so we would continue, and we'll expand on that in future tapings. The next point of that is you had it's spent time.
Right.
And I want to tell you right now, if you don't spend time in meditation, if you don't spend time in those quiet moments,
Right.
I don't know, I could never get to that next place. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Even for today, I have still spent time meditating and thinking about this taping.
Right.
Not that I had a preset idea of what was going to be said, but I spent time.
Right.
Just another quick expansion on that. What you're alluding to with all of those things, and you've done a lot of things with a lot of people across the United States. So you're stepping into some different cultural differences.
Certainly.
Speak to, how do you gather all that up in say a franchise meeting? How do you gather all that up, and is it incremental? What's a starting spot for all that?
When it was started, it was definitely not set in stone, nor did I have any true path or direction. And it was very, even though our goal was the same, as we transitioned, we dealt with different personalities. We dealt with the different millennials and the different relationships within that, and the dynamics of that really made a big difference as to how we came about from. We talk about the boundaries and the agendas. Everyone had their own boundaries and they had their own agendas, and those who weren't willing to let go of those have not gone with us in the last 8 months. They've literally held back, they've stayed back, and are very resistant to that. Those who have given up their own agenda for the organization as a whole, those who they've embraced everybody's decisions on where we're going with this company.
I say that next piece of successful business or successful living,
Right.
as creating a vision.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit about how comfortable that is. I mean, you're stepping into a group of people you don't really know, or you know a little bit.
Certainly.
As you start to create vision, how kind of give us an idea of what that looks like.
The original vision was really a very broad vision, and everybody had their decision as to how they looked at that vision and the meaning of that vision. To now that the culture is starting to develop, the vision is becoming clearer, and everyone has the same definition of that vision. Whereas before, everybody had their own interpretations, their own definitions of that.
Yeah, that's phenomenon there, that in our minds that we have created our own idea of what vision is, and we may all be agreeing that, hey, we're creating a vision here, but we actually had multiple ideas of that. Boy, that's a huge concept in developing unity and oneness.
Right.
And whatever you're doing, whether it's a marriage or whether it's a franchise or whether it's a relationship with your children,
Right.
that concept required something that is a huge skill, and you'll find it written in all leadership, in business, communication.
Certainly.
And to define what that is, early in my career, somebody said, well, you got to develop that good communication. It was on every annual evaluation.
Right.
Improve communication. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
And so I was struggling with, what does that mean? Do I just talk more?
Right.
That wasn't it. Because the more I talk, the more problems I have in a lot of cases. But you have just defined an element as that began for you professionally, and I know you've used it as well personally, that we'll continue to expand on. We're to that broad point of vision in many minds.
Right.
And we're going to move in our next taping to what's next. So tune in next time, and until that time, I'm Albert Wethridge.
And Wesley Robinson.
And you have a great day.